Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. And today in this channel we are going to develop one Python API, and after developing the API we will be installing new Relic agent in order to monitor it. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, we will be creating a folder and let's call it Python API, and let's open command prompt and open Visual Studio Code here. Okay, now the first thing we should start with. So here in this case I will not be using command prompt or PowerShell, but I will be using WSL. Okay, the font is not looking good, so let's change it to our desired font. So I'll not use Monaco, I'll use Comic Mono, and let's search for the terminal font. So I'll write terminal colon font and we'll get it, and here also we will change it to Comic Mono. Okay, fine. Look and feel is important, that's why I'm doing this anyways. So first of all, we have to create one virtual environment. Okay, as we know, it's a very good practice that if you are developing one application, Python application, you should create a virtual environment, and inside virtual environment you should install everything, all the required libraries for your particular application. Okay, so for that we'll write python 3 dash m when stands for virtual environment, and then we'll give a name to our virtual environment. I'll call it as Python API. So we will wait for some time because this command is going to install all the required Python dependencies in this directory under this folder. So let's wait for some time. Meanwhile it is happening, let me tell you that what we're going to develop here. So I already told that we'll be developing an API, but the functionality of that API will be, there will be one endpoint, and we can execute two type of HTTP method, get request and post request. By post request we are going to store some data, and by get request we can fetch the data. In this case I will not be using any database, I'll use a simple list, know which we will declare inside our code only, and then it will keep adding the items that we want to add on that particular list, and it will be showing us, and as we will keep running our session, so we will not lose anything. So okay, anyways, as you can see, our Python API virtual environment has been created. Now we have to activate it. So for activating it, we'll write source Python API bin activate. Now as you can see, before our terminal starts, here we will see something in the bracket that our virtual environment name. It means the virtual environment is activated. Now for our virtual environment we need only one library, because we will be developing our Python API with Flask, so we'll install Flask with this command pip install Flask. So by creating the virtual environment means we are not installing library globally on our computer, but it will be installed only for that particular project. Okay, in this case it will be our API. So let's wait for some time. Okay, so it is installed. Now we will create one Python file, we'll call it app.py, and there let's start developing our API. Okay, as of now I'll keep the terminal in the bottom. So we'll first import some items from the Flask library that we have installed. It will be Flask request and JSONify, and then we'll create the application, and like this we'll declare app as our application name for this project. Okay, let's create a list where whatever consumer will store through the post request, they will be stored on that list only. So let's write the post request, so it will be API/store, and the methods will be in this case only post, because through this method we will be inserting data. So store items, we'll call it store items. Okay, the method name. Anyways, this method name doesn't really matter, you can read, you can write your name also, but just for the sake of understanding and later on, for the reference that what function is doing what, that's why we will give some meaningful names. So this is the data what user will give, and with request.getJSON function we can get that data. Now suppose any user forgot to give any data, so that time it should, our API should indicate that you have not entered any data. For that we will write one if condition, that if not data, which means that if user has not given any data, then return one message. Okay, so and that message we will JSONify it, and it will be of course a error message, and it will tell no data received. Okay, and then it will return 400 HTTP code. But if the data is received, then we are going to append it on our store list what we have declared on line number 5, and as it is now stored, we'll return the positive message, which can be anything, like we'll write maybe message data received, and we will return HTTP 200 code. Now let's write the get request. As I said, endpoint will be same, and here the method will be only get, and then we'll write def get store, and we'll just simply return JSONify our store, and with HTTP 200 code. Then we will run our application. We'll keep our port as 7777, and we'll keep our host as 0.0.0.0. Okay, so our application is developed perfectly. Now let's run it and test it. So python 3 app.py. So as you can see, our Flask application started running. So this is the URL, we'll copy it, and we'll open our API client. In this case I am using Thunder client. So API/store, and now if I click on send, it will give me a blank list because I have not stored any data. If I do post, and in the body I'll enter one body item equal to chocolate. I'll click on send, data received. I'll add another item, cold drink, data received. Another item, maybe chicken. Fine, so we have entered 3 items. Now if we do get request, you'll see all the items are stored on the list. Okay, so functionally our API is working fine. Now let's install the New Relic agent in order to monitor its performance. So we'll stop our API for now. Later on we will start it with our New Relic agent, so that we'll be able to monitor everything. Now let's go to the New Relic portal. So I am currently logged in, and just a note that for what I am currently doing, if you want to mimic this, you don't need to pay anything. Just go to newrelic.com and create your own account. You can do these things with free tier only, and you also don't need to give any credit card information, of course. So for that we will go to APMN services, and then we'll click on add data. Okay, and then here you will find numerous options, like what type of application you want to monitor, what type of server you want to monitor. But in this case we'll go with Python. If you cannot see Python here, you can simply search here Python. That's completely fine. We'll click on Python, and then now we will just read whatever is written and we'll follow along. Okay, so no mastery required in New Relic in order to install any agent. So for that, in our case, we are running everything on Windows subsystem for Linux, as you can see. So on host, install on a Linux host using pip install. Like it is asking us to install the New Relic agent actually. Now in the next step it will ask you to create one license key and one user key. So I am not going to use an existing key, instead I'll create one. Okay, don't worry, you don't need to copy it. So we'll go to continue, and then we'll get the command to install the New Relic agent. So it's pip install New Relic. We'll simply copy from clipboard. We'll go to our application and we'll go to the terminal and we will install it. Okay, meanwhile it is installing. Let's see what are the other things we can fill. So it is asking me to name your application, so I'll call this Python store app. Okay, and here it says that download a custom configuration file. Okay, save the configuration file to a directory where your app is located. The configuration file will be referenced using New Relic config file environment variable when starting your app. Okay, cool. So what we are going to do, we'll just download it. So it is currently saved on my downloads folder, so I'll go to that folder and I'll just maybe cut it. I'll go to desktop, I'll go to our directory where I have my code, and I'll just paste it. Cool. Now it says that restart your application with New Relic agent. Okay, anyways, we'll do it. Let's see if it is installed. Cool, it is installed. Now it is asking me to restart the application with this command, right? So we'll first copy it. Now before writing it directly here, let's create a text file, maybe command.txt, and there it says that I have to paste my command. In order to run my application, I have to use python 3 app.py, of course, and remaining item I'll keep it as it is. I'll run it. So as you can see, it has started my application again. So now in New Relic we'll not be able to see anything, right? Because we just installed our agent and we have started our application with the New Relic agent, but there will be no traffic, right? So let's do some dummy requests, in order to, we have the history here. Okay, let's make some get call. I have empty data, fine. Let's go to post, let's go to headers, body, I'm sorry. So in the body I'll write items, and in the item I'll write chocolate, and I'll click on send. Then I'll write candle, I'll write chips, I'll write cold drink. Okay, now let's do some get request in order to see what are the data we have entered. Cool, let's do some more get request in order to generate more traffic for our application. Let's again do some posts, and in the posts let's write again items. Items should be iPhone 16. Let's write another product like AirPods Pro. So here we are adding some Alexa, some electronic items. Now let's do a get call and let's see whether all the products are there. Yeah, they are added: iPhone 16, AirPod Pro, Alexa, fine. So we have, I think we have sufficient traffic. So what we can do, we'll click on continue. Now it says that if I want to collect the log of my infrastructure, I can execute this command, because if we execute this command along with the application, it will also collect my computer's infrastructure details. It is actually a good practice. If you are monitoring some application, parallelly you should also monitor the server of that application, but in our case it is currently not required, so we will not do that, because our goal is to just test our application, that how our application is working. Only application related performance we need. We'll click on skip. Now we will test the connection. See, as you can see, infrastructure log to I have skipped, but Python agent is successfully installed and it is able to connect the data. So now we can go to see your data. So here I can see I have the data here, Python store app. So simply I can go to APM services, because whatever we have added, it will be stored here. So you can see Python store app. I'll click on it. So here we are able to see everything. it doesn't have any database, so in the other section I don't think so you'll be able to see anything. But here, as you can see, it is running absolutely fine. We can see what are the items we are what are the endpoints we are throwing, what are the method name we are throwing. And now let's go to query builder. Let's do some query. So we'll write from transaction, because everything is stored in our APM now. So we have to write transaction, select star, where app name is Python store app, and we'll click on run. So as you can see, we are getting all the matrices, we are getting the durations and everything. Now if I come here, I'll be able to see the port. Then the important things are the request method, whatever we are executing, these are the request URLs. And the main thing is our request URL. Okay, request URL is already there, we have the response status and everything. Now we can write our customized query in order to view anything. Maybe we can write average duration, and we can do facet based on the request method. So if I click on run, let me change the chart type from maybe pie chart. So it will tell us we have the post request with the get request. So usually the average response time, get request is taking very less time, and post request is taking compared to get request it is really high. So what we can do, we can multiply this with 1000 in order to convert this in millisecond, and we can write response time within bracket ms. So post is taking 4.42 millisecond and get is taking 1.89 millisecond. Okay, so as long as the application will be running, it will keep sending data to our new Relic, and like that we can monitor the performance of our Python application. So that's all for today's video. So here we have learned that if we have a Python application, how to install the New Relic agent and how to monitor different performance statistics of our application through New Relic. I hope the video is useful. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for another video like this. Thanks.